recovery. The city was reassured by the news that a deal had finally been done between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats, but this was offset by comments by the Bank of England that risks to the UK economy remain. There's also been another rise in unemployment. The total now stands at 2.51 million, the highest level since 1994. Well, our chief economics editor, Hugh Pym, is with me. Very interesting listening to Mervyn King, the Governor of the Bank of England, this morning, though, because he did effectively seem to endorse what the Conservatives, or the new coalition, is planning to do.
Yes, that's exactly right, Sophie. He's effectively muzzled himself for the last month or so because of the election campaign. Now, by coincidence, he had his quarterly media conference on this day of all days, so he was asked about the latest government and its plans. He said he'd been briefed on the Conservative and Liberal Democrat plans, and he was basically pleased that they were going to mount an accelerated deficit reduction plan, beginning with this £6 billion this year. Here's what he had to say earlier.
The most important thing now is for the new government to deal with the challenge of the fiscal deficit. It is the single most pressing problem facing the United Kingdom. It will take a full parliament to deal with, and it is very important that measures are taken straight away to demonstrate the seriousness and the credibility of the commitment to dealing with that deficit. And I have been told what is in the agreement between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats this morning, and I am very pleased that there is a very clear and binding commitment to accelerate the reduction in the deficit over the lifetime of the Parliament.
The Governor of the Bank of England speaking this morning. So obviously there have been big compromises that have been made. Do we now know how the numbers are all going to stack up between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats?
Well, one of the key Liberal Democrat demands in all this, which the Conservatives have agreed with, was raising the income tax allowance, the personal allowance, up towards £10,000. Now, I understand they're going to do something quite significant on that in the first financial year. That's beginning April 2011, raising it by as much as £1,000 per person, up from its current level of about £6,500. That would cost £5 billion. That sounds an awful lot. Now, that money would be raised by raising capital gains tax, which would bring in £2.5 billion, and by not going through with some of the Conservative plans on national insurance, that brings in £2.5 billion. So it balances. Now, where we go beyond that in future years is another point. Obviously, to get to 10,000, it's going to need more money being found from elsewhere, and I'm not totally convinced by the argument about where that's going to come from, but this is the start. I also understand that the Liberal Democrats are hoping for another job at the Treasury, another key job, possibly for David Laws.
Thank you very much. So, what now for the Labour Party? The removal vans are in Downing Street this lunchtime as New Labour moves out of government. Who will lead the party as it regroups? The former Home Secretary, Alan Johnson, has said he will not